and I've already got the questions. Yeah. Nope, we're going to just do a sit-down conversation. Craig, will you go get the doors shut? I think she's got her headset. It is, yeah. There we go. Okay, we're gonna get started. So welcome back, everybody. We're gonna dim this light up here a little bit too.
Thank you.
Okay. So don't I get the fun part? We're going to do a mic check on that one too.
Hello, hello, hello.
Can you turn this light down or off because it's really affecting? Christian, can you have them work with that light up there, please, and thank you?
Let's just get started.
Okay.
Oh, I don't have a mic. I don't have my sound yet. I don't have sound. Oh.
Okay, great.
It's pretty.
Great. Does that one work?
I think so. Awesome.
Okay, great. Okay, so welcome back. Thank you for spending your morning with us. We have had a series of questions come in, and out of probably the 95, we were only able to select a handful of them. And so we're going to try to get through as many as we can before we have to let our dear friend go, because she has to fly off to somewhere else into another community to do another event. And so she'll be exiting the stage at about 11:15, 11:20, and we're going to have her go out, and then I'm going to do housekeeping with you. So welcome back.
Can I just say, I really apologize for that. That I'm at the Surrey International Writers Conference, and that was booked before Carrie reached out. And so it's not my tradition to leave without feasting or being with you afterwards, so my apologies. I just want to say that up front, my apologies for having to leave right away.
No problem. Thank you, Monique. So as we get started, I have some tobacco here for you. Wrapped it yesterday in prayer cloth as I was talking about an elder, Mary Lee, that both Craig and I actually know and cross paths with, and so it was wrapped with good intentions, and I just want to say thank you for the conversation we're going to have today. So the first question I have for you, my dear, is do you have any suggestions for addressing staff members who think teaching about residential school or reconciliation is overdone?
That's a powerful question because that comes up a lot. Well, here's the thing, is that when my son was in grade 6, he asked the teacher why they were learning about Egypt for the 3rd year in a row. Like seriously, if you look at the history books and what are we teaching outside of Canada's history, it's pretty much the same curriculum. And you can imagine what happened to him as a student in grade 6 asking a question like that of a teacher. So I say to those teachers who are hesitant, find unique ways to do it. We don't always have to talk about the trauma. Tina gave us a beautiful video clip that can be used. You can purchase it from her, the ability to use it. It gives profound ways to do activities with students. Ask them at the beginning of the year, what have they learned and what do they want to build on? That we do not always have to talk about the trauma, the resilience of our people, the fact that we're here. When we look at that umbrella, we're not supposed to be here. So the fact that we're here, not only are we here, but we're the fastest growing population times 3, says something about our resilience. So there's so many ways to talk and teach about Canada's history. And residential schools is a key part of that, but when you look at that umbrella, there's many legislative decisions that have impacted the wellness of families and the relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. So I just encourage teachers to be creative, and if you have staff members who aren't open to that, then be like Sahej, right? He says one person, that's what it takes. So in your school, be that one person.
Great. Second question, it's twofold, so I'll ask you both parts at the same time. It says, what does reconciliation look like when it finally happens, and what needs to happen to get us there?
Holy jeez. I think for me, when we reach reconciliation, and I don't think I'm going to see it in my lifetime, I'm not sure my children will, I hope my grandchildren will, but that it is actually that we have a country where, one, there is equity and equality. They are different. And that every community has drinking water, and mothers and fathers and grandparents feel safe to bathe their children in them. And that, I heard Nigan Sinclair, who's the son of Senator Sinclair, say a couple years ago, he said, what we're challenged with now is that we've had 150 years in this country through legislation and through education where non-Indigenous people have been taught they are superior to Indigenous people, and Indigenous people have been taught that they are inferior to non-Indigenous people. So for me, I feel like when we get to a place where that isn't part of the conversation anymore, when that isn't actually the lived reality, then for me, we will have come to reconciliation. But I feel like we are a long ways away.
Thank you. Ooh, this is a good one too. Wow. Okay. How can we, as Indigenous educators, maintain our identity in this education system?
Holy jeez. I would say to walk with integrity and to have the courage to speak up when things in your school or in the district are not upholding the respect and the dignity, first of the peoples whose land where our schools are on, and the first peoples of this country. And sometimes to have that courage to speak up is not easy, and sometimes it doesn't come out gently. So I would say that's one piece. And I think that all of us have our own ways of taking care of ourselves. And that taking care of myself means that I can allow many times my identity to show up in a different way than if I am depleted. So I am not really feeling like I answer that fully. For me, I know that to be able to walk in the world as a Nihiho Esqueo, as a Cree woman, and as a Scottish woman, and as a Lakota woman, I have to take care of myself. Because there's so many places where things are coming that it would be easy to just begin to wither. And you're working in a system that doesn't always uphold the respect and dignity. And not just in our district, but across the country. This is a huge part of our work, is shifting that. And mistakes will be made, but it is about how do we shift that. So I would say self-care is pretty much, and self-preservation at times as well.
Are we ready? As a settler educator, what is the best way to serve as both an ally and teacher for reconciliation?
And again, like, there's many people. There's 3 right here in the front row. There's Frank. Like, there's so many Indigenous educators in this room right here who could be answering these questions. So I feel awkward being the only voice here when there is so much wisdom and expertise in this room. So please, only hear me as one voice. I would say relationships. That the focus on relationships would be fundamental, the relationships with those whose land your school is upon, and how do you have a reciprocal relationship. Often it's said, well, bring people in from the community. Well, that's great, but what are your contributions to the community? Where is the reciprocity? In the last few years, there's been so much happening around us coming into schools that we have elders who are exhausted. We have cultural knowledge holders who are exhausted because it isn't always a reciprocal relationship. We have Indigenous people working in this system who are exhausted because the last few years, while it's beautiful, there has been a change. It has required more of those of us who are working in the systems than ever before. And so people are tired. So allies and settlers, you need to be stepping up and doing your piece and accessing curriculum and resources instead of always having to have somebody come in. And if somebody's coming in, how do you have a reciprocal relationship with them? And it isn't only the honorarium, it isn't only a thank you, it isn't only a gift, but how are you filling them up? That would be my question, my thought.
As we continue on the conversation with reconciliation, the question comes up on how do I share in the journey to reconciliation?
Well, the first thing I would say is understanding where you live. What are the gifts here? What are the gifts that fill you up from this place that we are incredibly blessed to live upon? And to know the 94 calls to action and choose at least one that you will focus on this year. And weave it not only into your professional life, but into your personal life. If you're part of a book club, choose a book that's written by an Indigenous author. If you're part of dialogues around your house or in your community, and you host feasts or dinner parties, have questions around reconciliation on your table. Now make sure if you're inviting people that they know what kind of dinner party they're coming to, that you can have those deeper conversations and have the ability to sit in the uncomfortableness. And that there doesn't always have to be a right way because, I gave you my definition of reconciliation, but when the Truth and Reconciliation Commission came together for the first time, they had 127 different definitions about what reconciliation is. So each one of us in here has our own definition. And if you haven't thought about that, that would be a good place to start. What does reconciliation mean to me, to my family, as a community member, as a person who's incredibly blessed to live on these territories?
This question says, I understand how to move forward in new relationships, but how can I help heal the past?
In Speaking Our Truth, one of the young people who I had the privilege to visit with, her name is Maddie, and she's in the Saanich district. And she said one sentence to me that I think is so powerful. And she said, healing is awareness, and awareness is healing. So I think that's part of it, that, we've begun to understand some of Canada's history, but there's so many elements of Canada's history that has not been taught, very strategically not been taught, or taught around our dinner tables. And so that's part of it is understanding a deeper way around. I don't know if we can heal the history. We can heal the path forward, but I'm not sure about healing the history.
You touched a little on social emotional learning earlier in your conversation. And this question is really wrapped around that. And so it says, when it comes to social emotional learning, do you think experiences of happiness and experiences of joy accomplish the same thing for our students?
Oh, for sure. Just think about yourself. When do you learn best? Is it when you're angry and disgruntled or pissed off? Or is it when somebody smiled at you in the hallway, or somebody's held open the door, or somebody says, hey, my mom made this amazing sandwich this morning, you want half? Right? Like those pieces of happiness and joy, they actually alter our brain chemistry. So yeah, they're absolutely critical. It's not fluff. I'm not talking fluff here. If you want to see some of the research, Sean Acor is the lead researcher in the United States, and he's got 5 books out about the brain chemistry and the importance of happiness. So I'm not, social. People think, oh, social emotional learning, meh. I'm always like, oh, that tells me a lot about you. Social and emotional learning is really, really critical to the wellness of the citizens we're helping to raise up. It's not an accident that we have such a crisis around anxiety, suicide, self-harming. That has happened because we haven't paid attention to educating the hearts. And families have become so busy and so full. So we have to course correct really quickly. We need to do that really quickly, that our business is actually educating hearts and minds.
So I have one more question, and then I'm going to have an opportunity for final thoughts for you. And then I'm going to bring it to a close, and then I'm going to gently get her out to make sure she catches her cab, because that's my job. So my question, and my final question here is are there any other important emotional experiences our students should have before they leave our class?
Wow. I think that they feel respected and that their dignity is held up. I think that's so powerful. And I had on the break a little adventure trying to find the washroom. And you know how when we listened to the Pebbles, I was like, okay, now I understand why. Because when I came out, just on the outside here, is that beautiful framed piece of Anne Tenning, who was a teacher here, former student here, who now is the district principal in Salmon Arm, who won the Governor General's Award for Education. And I walked out of that bathroom and I was like, there she is. And she talks a lot about the importance of students feeling respected and that their dignity be held up, and that when their family comes into the classroom or into your school, their dignity must be held up. The greatest gift you can give a student is for them to see their parents or people they love held up with dignity. Such a powerful gift, because some of them will not have seen that before. That's why those of you who are in the front office, you're so important. I was just in Burnaby last week, and I arrived at the school, and it was pouring rain, huge school, 1,600 students, 2 visitor parking spots, but a 24-hour spot for the RCMP. So I went into the front, and I had all these books to give to students. So I walked in, I was doing work with young people, and I always want to give them gifts. So I walked in and I said to the front desk, I said, I'm wondering if I can park. There was 1 spot available in the vice principal, principal spots. Can I just park there for a minute while I bring in the books? No. I said, but I'm here like to work with the young people, and no, that's for the vice principal. I said, just so I can bring in all these books in this pouring rain? No. I was like, okay. So I left and I thought, if I was a parent coming in and I was greeted like that, would I stay? First of all, if I was a parent coming in and there was only 2 parking spots and I couldn't find one and I was nervous or stressed, would I stay? Probably not. I probably would have drove on. And so it was interesting because the gentleman who brought me in asked, how was your welcome? And I said, well. And you know what he said to me? Was it the woman with the gray curly hair and glasses? So she's known. And so it kind of goes back to that last slide. What do you want to be known for? Right?
This is your opportunity to leave us with any final thoughts or words that you feel like we should carry as a family. Because as I look out into this audience, I look at us as a collective family, doing this work on reconciliation, and personally and professionally. And as we bring it back into our school communities, and as we start to look at how to do this work, my question is there any final thoughts that you have for us as we continue on?
Well, I want to offer thanksgiving to Nella Nelson, because I wouldn't be sitting here if she hadn't done all this work in our district for 39 years. Yeah. And to yourself for coming in a new way. Very grateful for that. I just ask that on as many days as possible, that your best self shows up. And I know that not every day that can happen, but on as many days as possible, can your best self show up? That can you make eye contact with as many students as possible? Smile at as many as possible. You know, the Ritz-Carlton, I don't know, I've never stayed there, but this is what I hear. They have it, they call it the RC effect. That if a customer gets within 10 feet, somebody smiles at them. If a customer gets within 5 feet, somebody says hello. Imagine what would happen in our schools if that was what happened in the hallways, or with students that you don't even know if you smiled at them or said hello. Some of you are young enough that they might think you're their classmates. But that really your best self shows up as absolutely much as possible. And that we honor those who are doing the work that sometimes is unseen. That all of those of you in here, especially from the Indigenous Education Department, much gratitude, because I know you're doing the work that is very, very challenging to not only educate the hearts and minds, but also educate the hearts and minds of those who you're working with. So you're doing double work. So much gratitude to you. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for taking care of my son.
Aw, you're welcome.
And my nieces. Yes, my nieces.
This is my chance to actually thank you. And I get to thank you as a mother. I get to thank you as an auntie. I get to thank you as a friend. I've gotten to watch your journey as an author. You're a granddaughter. You're a mother. You know, and thank you for bringing your ancestors in with us today into this conversation. I truly do honor you, and I truly do honor the time that we've spent together. And as the language of this territory, we'd say Haichka Siem, and I want to say I honor you and thank you. So please help me welcome and honor
Haichka Siem, thank you. I'm really sorry to have to run.
Oh,
Pacific Coastal doesn't wait for anybody.
I know. You are welcome. Okay, safe journeys, safe journeys. So some final housekeeping things before I put you on lunch. Okay. Everybody likes feedback. We like feedback. So you'll see these posters up and around the building. If you see them, please give us the opportunity to have some feedback on today between the morning sessions and the afternoon sessions that you've participated in. This just helps us to continually build professional learning for us as a family as School District 61. So that's one of the things that I want to say. The other piece is that those who've only signed up for the morning session, I really do want to thank you for coming and having this conversation with us today. This is part of that work that we need to do independently at times. And you entered into this room in a good way. So if you were here just for the morning, I wish you well on the rest of your day. For those that signed up for the full day, lunch is available to you downstairs in the cafeteria. Yes. Okay. So So lunch will be ready for you downstairs, but not until 11:40. So you actually have like a few moments to make your way downstairs. If you are traveling to one of our afternoon sessions off-site, which is either at Goldstream Hatchery in Souk or at the Métis History Tour in the Ross Bay Cemetery, we actually have a boxed lunch for you to take with you, and those boxed lunches will be available in the foyer. When you go downstairs for lunch,